Welcome to San Diego Mensa TV. I am Amara Marsden. This broadcast will be about one of our speakers at the regional gathering that will be held here in San Diego over Memorial Day weekend. It'll be at the Hilton in Mission Valley. And one of our speakers from Minnesota is Mark Lissick, an award-winning nature photographer who has traveled those many miles to bring us a redefining of awareness.
Now, from our Scripps Ranch studio, we'll join Minnesotan Mark Lissick by phone and ask him some questions about his Memorial Day weekend talk at our San Diego Regional Gathering. Mark's topic is redefining our awareness. Welcome to SDM TV, Mark. We look forward to seeing you in person over Memorial Day weekend here in the San Diego Hilton.
I'm looking forward to coming down, particularly in light that in Minnesota last night we had a northern cold front that moved in and I woke up to 38 degrees. So hopefully it'll be a little bit warmer down in your neck of the woods than it is in mine.
It has been, and between 60 and 70 will be the temperatures while you're visiting us. They promise.
I'll hold you to that.
I'm curious, Mark, what do you mean by redefining our awareness?
Well, the basic premise starts in the fact that when we are born, we have a need to think and to communicate. And by thinking and communicating, we undertake to clarify things. Clarification, in turn, is achieved through the use of definitions and labels and terms and conditions. And if you think about it, without those, we'd have a terrible time talking to each other. If I'd say tree and you'd be thinking or conceptualizing Pacific Ocean, nobody would ever understand what they're really talking about in this case. So, so putting definitions and labels and things like that on things is absolutely great. But the problem is that by defining and putting rationality and structure to that sort of thing, those things can also become prisons by blanking out other ways of seeing. They become structures. And another way of looking at it is definitions do create structure for us, which is a good thing, but structures creates walls or frameworks or barriers depending upon your point of view. And from an artist standpoint or an engineering standpoint or a scientist standpoint, those kind of walls can either create security because you have a framework in which to work with, or from an artist standpoint particularly, or a creative standpoint, it could be a lost opportunity. So.
Yes, I see that. How has this process influenced you as a photographer?
Well, going back, I've been a nature photographer for some 18 years now, almost 2 decades. And I was a scientist and engineer before that. And no matter how you look at it, I've been involved in some sort of creative process from the get-go. And anytime anybody does something that involves creativity, the danger is if you do it for so long, the creative process tends to follow the same pathways. You're using the same definitions, the same terms, the same conditions, the same boundaries, if you will. Okay? And with that sort of stuff, you tend to get in a rut. Okay? And from an artist standpoint, we call that designing in a rut, if you will. And what it has done for me as I grew up and started working in as a landscape and then ultimately a wildlife photographer, I found that a lot of my early work began to look like a lot of my later work. Things start looking the same. So I went back and re-examined some basic premises, both about my photography, about the art, about the equipment, and about the nature of things, okay? And with those changes in definitions, what it did was to allow me to follow other pathways of creativity, okay? The camera was no longer a vehicle by which to capture light. The camera was instead a blank canvas on which I could paint anything. And as soon as I changed those basic premises and definitions, okay, all of a sudden my subjects that I was capturing on camera, documenting my natural world, became essentially paintbrushes, of which I could use their color, shapes, tone, and light to be able to create new pieces of art, new creative processes on the camera's canvas, if you will.
The camera became a blank canvas. How creative is that? Mark, for someone attending your talk, what would you hope they would come away with from it?
Well, first and foremost, I hope they walk away with a desire to start questioning everything. This sort of application goes a long way. I mean, from your home life, if I say hamburger, most of us pretty much understand that we know what it looks like on a grocery shelf or between two buns, but very rarely do we think of it in the form of a hamburger being a cow and the nature of the cow and the behavior and all the rest of those sorts of things. So applying those questions to the definitions and premises in our daily lives, our relationships, choice of furniture and interior decorating, to application and problems in their business. Okay, by being able to step back and say, this is the way I've been doing it, this is the way I've been defining it, and saying it may not necessarily be so, by coming up with new definitions and therefore new awarenesses, ultimately can lead you to new ways of being creative.
Thank you, Mark. We really enjoy looking forward to seeing you here in San Diego on Sunday, May 24th at the Mission Valley Hilton, when you share more of your mind-expanding thoughts and photographs. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye. Look forward to the talk on Sunday.